Huge game they have this coming weekend. And when you look at from your piece there, Sam, it was interesting to read. Again, people check it out. I guess I'll just go with you big picture. Do you think they have the staying power to maintain a title challenge in the Liga right there with Real Madrid? Obviously, Barcelona's behind them now. Do you think they can maintain this? Can they be the Leicester of La Liga?
This is where we are, isn't it? We're sort of slowly getting towards there. We're 15 games in now, and everyone's sort of been waiting for them to, to start dropping points, and it's just not happened yet. And even in Girona, they're sort of aware that, expectations have shifted. Obviously, in the piece, we speak with a lot of directors, players not so brazen with their expectations. They're more sort of sticking to the game by game motto. But the executives now are saying, look, the position we're in, we've got to be targeting European football. I think the fight now, if that's what they're saying, sort of publicly, I think privately they're thinking, look, we've got a real good shot at the top four. I think we need to see, much more sustained challenge before we're really, really talking about them as, a Leicester. But the way they're going, the way they're playing, I can't rule anything out. I think what was interesting last weekend, I was at the Valencia game at Girona when they came back to win 2-1. And it was just interesting how much they sort of believed in themselves when they were behind, how much they believed in their way of playing. And it felt inevitable that they were going to win that game. And also just the reaction from the ground, from the players, from the coaching staff. That wasn't the reaction of, look, coming back to win 2-1 is a great result, whatever. But that was the reaction of a team that was, really starting to believe that something special could happen. And I mean, something special for Girona would be European football for the first ever time. But I think they're thinking that, Champions League football could be a real possibility.
And you mentioned it there, that the belief of this team is remarkable. They have the most points rescued from losing positions in the top 5 leagues in Europe. It's been impressive. One other question, just a big picture. I know, LME, we talked about this off camera. You want to kind of look at this upstart. They're tied with Real Madrid on points. They're 4 ahead of Barcelona before their match this weekend. But they are part of Citigroup. They're part of this massive conglomerate. How does that factor into their success, or even how they're maybe viewed in Spain or abroad?
Yeah, I mean, it's rarely mentioned in Spain, really. But I mean, you can't talk about the Girona story without talking about the connection to the City Football Group, who have been involved since 2017. They got involved just after Girona's first ever promotion to La Liga. So that sort of upturn in the club's fortune had started to happen just before City Football Group got involved. But it's interesting to view them as, a part of one of the 13 clubs, either part-owned or partners with the City Football Group, because obviously, without that, they probably don't have this success. I mean, if you look at the makeup of their squad this season, they've got guys on loan from other City Football Group clubs. Savio, their star winger this season, is on loan from Troyes. Jan Couto is on loan from Manchester City. Other players have played for Manchester City before. Last season, they of course had Tati Castellanos from New York City. So they take huge advantage of the network of clubs and players that are available to them through the City Football Group. But I mean, from there to being, where they are top of the league is obviously another big leap. We can't deny that they're completely overperforming. Other coaches, we spoke to the Alaves coach a couple of weeks ago after Barca beat them 2-1 about Girona and whether, Girona could be a benchmark for other clubs like Alaves. Alaves, a club with traditionally much more history than Girona, but he was very much like, great story, completely overperforming, but don't compare us with Girona. He didn't strictly say why, but you got the feeling it was because, look, even though we've got these La Liga, wage limits, everyone has a set limit. Girona's is 52 million, which is a bit more than Alaves is. It places them 14th in the league. They also have this, and this is what the sporting director, Kike Casal, also said to us this week. They have this competitive advantage in the transfer market where they can work with sort of more knowledge and with City Football Group.
I mean, you got to leverage every opportunity, every angle you got to try to break the duopoly. We'll not leave Atleti out. Obviously, they're in the mix too, obviously, in most years in La Liga. All right, LME, let's talk Barcelona, though. They're 4 points adrift for this game. They haven't scored more than 2 goals in over 2 months in a match. I mean, how do you feel about Xavi's side and granted, injuries aside, where they're at?
Yeah, Barcelona have been a very interesting story in the last, I guess, ever since the financial crisis that happened way before in regards to legalities. And then when Xavi came in and made everything, I think it's funny because on paper, in many ways, things are generally okay competing in the Champions League, obviously fighting Girona, as Sam was saying, and Real Madrid in La Liga. But I'm a little bit worried, as you mentioned, about the overuse of their young talent, including Pedri and, of course, Gavi, which is such a terrible story. And now, and I guess the answer, Dalen, goes to a question to Sam, because obviously this is a team he covers extensively. What's going on with Robert Lewandowski? And why has there not really been a plan for him after? Because the contract is up till 2026, right? Was that a mistake? What's going on with him? And is there an immediate solution even as early as January?
Yeah, I mean, Lewandowski's been out of form. I mean, he perhaps a victim of his own initial success at Barcelona. Up until the World Cup, when they first signed him, he was almost carrying that team. He scored some really important goals in, the Champions League, even though they eventually went out. I remember a winner against Mallorca in a 1-0 win, and he was, scoring more goals than games at that time. Since the World Cup, we're not really sure what's happened. His form has been hot and cold. Like you say, 8 goals in 17 games this season, which is, far from his usual standards. There's been kind of a mix of reaction to it. On the one hand, Xavi and people at the club say, look, we've not been creating enough for him. On the other hand, there have then been games more recently, specifically this Atletico Madrid game last weekend, where he has missed chances. And then we're scratching our heads saying, well, there have been chances created for Lewandowski, and he's looked off form. I mean, he's always been a great finisher, especially in the air. He's been good for Barcelona, but just his all-round game has been slightly off this season. And like you say, he's tied into a long-term deal, obviously because of the amortization effect and Barca wanting to spread those payments over as many years as possible. I don't think we're going to see any sort of drastic solution in January. Obviously, Vitor Roque will come in from Brazil and provide competition, or at least provide some sort of backup to Lewandowski between now and the end of the season. But you don't want to sell Lewandowski and put all this weight on this young Brazilian shoulders, because like you say, we've seen what's happened with Gavi getting injured, Pedro getting injured. It's not necessarily the best tactic. Next summer is interesting because, everyone at Barca, everyone close to Lewandowski, they say, look, no, Lewandowski wants to stay, but if his form doesn't improve, if Roque comes in and is brilliant, and there's interest from, let's say, Saudi Arabia, countries or other leagues like that, I'm sure Barca will be saying, look, at least think about it, Robert, even if he wants to stay and compete at the top level. So basically, to get out of the question, I guess it all depends on how he can kick on now over the next 6 months. And some promising signs that Barca have found a little bit of form now that they've got Pedri and De Jong back, and perhaps they can start to create more chances for him.
To be fair, Dalen Cuff, like they just won 1-0 against the Atletico Madrid you were talking about. So there are some good signs, and Joao Felix, of course, still proves to be a pretty good answer in terms of that. But yeah, I mean, I don't care how young he is right now. I guess Vitor Roque can come soon enough to at least alleviate some of what's going on with Lewandowski. But it's an interesting storyline for sure. Yeah,
Sam, I like how you say, Rob, would you think about it from Saudi Arabia? Yeah, when they're coming with a 9-figure transfer fee, probably for a guy in his mid-30s. Please think about it. They would be asking for Barcelona. Yeah, give me that cash. Take the guy. Sam, what's the level of pressure do you feel right now on Barcelona to perform in this match? You're 4 points back. You're coming off a big win, as Elmi just said, in last weekend. What's the vibe like there around the club in terms of this match and pressure to kind of maintain pace here?
Yeah, it's not what it could have been. Obviously, we had the international break, which was followed by the draw at Rayo Vallecano, and it kind of reached a sort of crisis point after that Rayo Vallecano game, and we were looking ahead at the Porto Champions League game, the Atletico Madrid game, and then this Girona game, and saying, look, these are 3 huge games. Barca and Xavi could be in big trouble after them. They've beaten Porto. They've booked their place in the next round of the Champions League for the first time since 2021. They've beaten Atletico Madrid to move back above them in La Liga, and now they've got Girona. So before the game, there's a little bit of calm. Xavi said after these Porto and Atletico Madrid games, he's gone, look, I go from game to game. I'm basically buying myself sort of like peace in between games. So he's bought himself peace until this Girona game. But yeah, if they drop points, if they lose, there's going to be another crisis, another sort of inquest into, is Michel better coach than Xavi? How are they losing at home to Girona? Because regardless of how good Girona have been, that won't be an acceptable reason for losing to them at home. So yeah, they've got some calm going into this game. But yeah, it's the same at Madrid and at Barca and all these clubs. Any defeat and they're just sort of a few seconds away from a full-blown crisis.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, Elmi, give me your thoughts on the match and a prediction, if you will.
I mean, I just think that given the nature of how everything is going, everything depends on home advantage. And I do think that Barcelona just about has the edge, but there's no short takings of what Girona have done, even with the City Football Group, because you still have to win matches. You still have to make it happen against some of the very big boys. But I think Barcelona is gonna win this. By the way, this is a local-ish game here, Dalen. You take a little bit of I did it last summer, take a little an hour and a half trip all the way to the coast from Barcelona. I know that Sammy Marsden has done it many times. So, it's not exactly a terrible, assignment when you have to go from Barcelona to Girona in this game, or the other way around.
Yeah, so it's always been a friendly rivalry. So I was commenting earlier on a podcast to see how the dynamics of the relationship changes if Girona were to come to Montjuic this weekend and win and go 7 points clear and leave sort of Barca stranded for now in the title race, whether there would be a little bit of animosity or not. But for the moment, it's always been quite friendly. And, traditionally people from Girona often support Girona and Barca. That's slightly changing. And looking to the game, I'm really looking forward to it because I think they're both teams that play on the front foot, both want to have the ball, both want to attack, which isn't always the case when teams come to Barca. The problem that Girona have is when teams do come to play, Barca often tear them apart. They really struggle against teams, especially this season, that sit deep, that are organised. Girona obviously organised in a different way. So I think that perhaps it could play into Barca's hands. Obviously, Girona's only defeat this season was against Real Madrid. They were beaten 3-0. So the way that they play is obviously great most of the time, but when it comes up against Barca or Madrid, perhaps it won't quite be enough. And I think Barca will win this one just on the quality, and I'm hoping for an open game.